Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, Dhamman Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Ratana Sutta. This is one of the suttas that we have from the very well-known group of suttas or discourses called Sutta Nipata. It is the oldest that we have, in addition to Udana and Itivuttaka that were available at the time of Lord Buddha. We have many discourses where we see references made to the Sutta Nipata. Not by that term, but usually the one that comes to mind right now is the Parayana Vagga and the actual chapters within what came to be known as the Sutta Nipata. So this is from the second book of the Sutta Nipata and 2.1. It is made of 17 verses, and it is a very colorful setting. It has a very interesting story behind it. And over centuries, there were many commentators who added different nuances, different background stories. Some of them were not real, but they had a nice little flair about them. But essentially, it was spoken by Lord Buddha. And essentially what happens is you had the Lichavis. Lichavis were very proud people. They had a principality. They were a combination of princes. And they were known to be very much into their looks. They loved colors. They loved wearing different outfits with different colors. In fact, one time, a group of them were coming in, and the bhikkhus were walking in the other direction. And Lord Buddha turns to the bhikkhus and says, "Look at these Lichavi princes. If you had the ability to see the Deva realms, you would see that many of their behaviors, their characteristics, their outfits actually resemble some of the Devas in their colors and their luster. Without knowing, they were actually mimicking the different realms of Devas, the Lichavi princes." Now, this is happening prior to the time where they had a very good relationship with Lord Buddha. But first, it didn't start like that. And the city that they lived in was today's Vaishali or Vesali. You see it in the suttas. Vesali became a very well-known city for the sasana, because that was also the place where, among other things, the bhikkhuni ordination took place for the first time. So it's a very significant city for the Buddhist tradition. And luckily, it is there still. And in fact, one of the pillars of Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka, is still there with a lion on top, which you don't normally see. I think it's the only one left in India. That is, the pillar is there with the lion on top, intact. Most of them are chopped, broken, etc. So what is happening is the Lichavis are having a major problem with famine, with sickness and disease, and all kinds of nasty things are taking place in their city, which normally was kept very clean, was successful, prosperous. Somehow, one thing led to another. Things were not going well at all. So they hear about Lord Buddha, and they send a special a group of individuals, ambassadors, if you will, to Lord Buddha to invite him and the bhikkhus to come and bless their city. Later commentators have mentioned how it was so bad that there were corpses in the cities, the streets. Now, we cannot validate that, but that's how we normally get the story in connection with the Ratana Sutta. Ratana, by the way, means jewel. Ratana means jewel. Tiratana, that we say the triple gem. Gem or jewel, it's the same thing. But why a jewel? Many people, we love to repeat verses, we love the chanting of the suttas, because it has a certain aura around it, a story around it, and how it has been transmuted, transferred along the centuries. If you noticed earlier, I mentioned how we are feeling beings. Feelings get triggered. And they get triggered by the feelings and experiences of other beings. Things that have happened to other beings in different eras, it doesn't matter. You tell a good story and all of a sudden you could start crying right now. It moves you. So this sutta has come to be known as a moving sutta. But not necessarily for the right reasons. What I mean by that is, as I go through the verses, I would love for you to look at the content of the sutta, not the background story of Vesali, of how Venerable Ananda was chanting and what was happening, etc., and all that. That is very tertiary, not even secondary in importance. Because there was a reason why Lord Buddha even said these verses to begin with. So, when the group of Lichavis have met with the Lord Buddha immediately agrees, seeing the importance of this, and also the fact that the Lichavis were ready to receive the Dhamma. And whenever Lord Buddha had seen that someone was ready, he would not care about the distances separating. And of course he had the psychic powers to just instantaneously show up there. But in those circumstances, I rarely have come across a place where Lord Buddha just instantaneously appeared if there was a lesson to be taught there. Meaning he would walk those 750 miles. Pukkusati, King Pukkusati comes to mind, where Lord Buddha had to go all the way from Rajagaha to where Pukkusati was staying, walked there. So similarly, in this case, he walked with the other bhikkhus to get to Vesali. And already, as he was approaching, the weather pattern changed. So there were clouds in the sky, they say in the commentators, and Lord Buddha had Venerable Ananda fill his bowl with water, and one of the young princes of the Lichavis was to accompany him, and he was to sprinkle water every time he walked through the streets. And Lord Buddha, because Venerable Ananda had photographic memory, Lord Buddha gave him the verses of the Ratana Sutta, which Venerable Ananda goes and sprinkles in the streets as they are going. And what it says in the commentators' work or commentaries is that all the evil, all the negative influences that were, even the streets used to smell, they say, smell of death. It was torrential rain. It cleaned up the whole city of Vesali. I've walked through the city of Vesali, modern day Vesali. It's lovely, and people are nice as well. There's a lovely There's a world peace pagoda that the Japanese Buddhist community has built. So it's lovely. And they say that Lord Buddha was there for about 2 weeks teaching the sutta to the Lichavis, and many people had become awakened. Stages of awakening, different stages, all 4. And many have become monks as well. So, that is basically the background of the sutta. I don't like to go too much into the background like that, because that can deviate from the main purpose that Lord Buddha even said these words. It's like that image, you know, the finger pointing to the moon. Many people worship the finger. They don't look at what the finger is pointing at. That is what this sutta has become, unfortunately. But because of the significance of the day, of the event, other beings showed up as well. King Sakka, king of the Devas, the Deva Raja, he was there. If he was there, all the others were there, including the 4 great kings who controlled the world system that we live in. So the sutta is intended for one thing, but it became known for something else, meaning protection from evil, protection from sickness, protection from this and that. That was the tertiary, 3rd level of importance you can think of, rather than the main objective, which the words will say. But unfortunately, most of us don't even read, even though the BMV's here, Buddhist Mahavihara's chanting book, has a wonderful rendition of the sutta with English. And the English is pretty good, the translation. So you have both Pali and English for you to follow, which is great. Many other Pali or Paritta chantings don't have that. So let's start. I like to say it in Pali first and then in the English. And wherever I need to stop to address it, I will, if it needs to be, I will do so. Yani dabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani antalikhe sabbeva bhuta sumana bhavantu athopi sakkaccha sunantu bhasitam. It's good if you like to. I mean, if you like to listen to it while your eyes are closed, because they are powerful words, even if you don't understand the meaning. But I will address the English. Whatever non-human beings that are assembled here, whether terrestrial or celestial, may they all have peace of mind with contented hearts as they listen attentively to these words. So this is almost like an invitation, preparing the ground. Because aside from the human beings present, there were other beings present. And the closest devas are the ones that are closer to the ground, earth-based devas, the ones that you feel or sense around trees, in parks, in forests, in jungles, in lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, mountains. They are much closer to the earth. But starting from that, remember, those were the devas who first announced that Venerable Anya Kondanya saw the Dhamma when Lord Buddha was just teaching the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta in Sarnath. They were the first ones to recognize. They were the first ones to see and witness. And they cried out loud, joyfully. And the next stage, which was the Chatu Maharajika, the 4 great kings' domains, that means the devas of those realms, heavenly beings. Then you had the Nagas, and then you had the Yakhas, and then you had the Kumbhandas. They were the next who actually saw it, felt it, heard it, and they it moved up to the Tavatinsa, they cried out, and then it moved up to Tushita heaven, and then eventually all the way to the Brahman realms. So the first ones to recognize are the earth devas. So from them all the way up to the celestial realms, it says, terrestrial or celestial. Tasma hi bhuta nisamitha sabbe mittang karotha manusya pajaya Devacha rattocha haranti ye baling tasmahine rakhatha appamatta. O beings, listen closely. May you all radiate loving kindness. May you all radiate loving kindness. Even in the Ratana Sutta. Auspicious or what? Loving kindness to those human beings who, by day and night, include you in their thoughts, dedicating to you the merits of their offerings. Therefore, watch over and protect them with diligence. You know, most devas cannot stand being close to human beings. We smell badly to them. In fact, they say that the devas would rather stay away from us by 700 miles. They avoid us. We smell bad. How can you blame them? If you were to see the kind of state they are in, the splendor, the radiance, the fragrance, the food we eat is disgusting to them. They have different types of food that are much more subtle. And the higher levels you go, it becomes even more subtle. So in the suttas, we have Lord Buddha discussing how I gave a talk on another sutta recently, the Payasi Sutta, from the Digha Nikaya, a powerful sutta, where Lord Buddha uses all of the arguments that even the worst and the most radical atheist would make a big deal about. Lord Buddha actually addressed it beautifully. And he gives the example of someone who was swimming in sewage, and they get to be pulled out. Strong men come and pull them out. And then they shower them again and again and again, clean them up with scrapes of bamboo to scrape off the poop, the excrement from their skin, from their ears, their eyes, their hair. They wash them again and again with different kinds of soap, fragrances, again, 7 times over, in different kinds of fragrant waters. And then they massage them, they change their hair, they clean all their hair and beard. They dress them up in beautiful outfits, put fragrances, ointments, all these things, and then they send them off to the highest penthouse that the king has and have them enjoy the 5 sense pleasures. That was an analogy, a metaphor that Lord Buddha was using for a deva. Because Prince Payasi was making the excuse that if there are devas, if my close friends have died and they were really good people, they've done nothing but kusala. So I asked them before they died, when you go and really the deva realm exists, come back and tell me. So Lord Buddha was saying, imagine someone was pulled out of the sewage and now they have cleaned up. They're all the way in that palace, enjoying more pleasure than you can possibly enjoy, you as a prince here on this land. Do you think that person would go back to the sewage? Because that's what this planet is. And even Prince Payasi says, oh no, they would not even dream of coming back. And he says, how do you expect your loved ones to come back and tell you, hey, the Deva realms do exist? Similarly, the Devas are so refined that they stay away. But here you see in these verses, Lord Buddha is encouraging the Devas. It's okay. Look at these humans. They offer fruit, they offer food, they put some water in front of the Buddha statue, even if you're by yourself. You say, I offer this to the Triple Gem, I offer this to all beings, to the Devas, Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, all beings, including my relatives, all these people. Who first? The Devas. See, they are including you in their chant, in their thoughts, in their intentions. Like today I was mentioning about what dana is during lunch. So the Devas are getting the benefit of these merits as well from these smelly humans. So at least come down and help these beings when they are sharing so much with you. Even the very little that they have, they are sharing it. So don't be surprised when many of you actually teach Devas about generosity. See, because simply because a Deva is a Deva doesn't mean that they are wholesome beings, that they are paramis. No, they might have just been in the right place at the right time and did the right thing once. So Devas often come to Dhamma talks, but not all of them. But you can inspire the Devas to approach the 700-mile distance, to come closer to you, because they see something beautiful in you. When you're doing metta, that's a Brahma Vihara. That's even higher than just a mere Deva. They're moved by that. They don't see that. You don't see that in a so-called developed country these days. So you can be inspiring Devas. So here Lord Buddha is inviting them to come. I think it's getting a little bit too chilly for some. If there's a way we can increase the heat in the room. I'm seeing people are getting layered up. Yes. Next. Yang kinchivitang idhava hurangva sagge suvayang ratanang panitang nano samang athi tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvathi hotu. Whatever treasures that are found, be it in the cosmos, in different parts of the universe, in another solar system, in a Brahma realm, in a Deva realm, wherever they might be, in a Yakka realm. Whatever precious jewels there may be in the heavenly realms, nothing compares to the Tathagata, the perfect ones, or perfected ones. This precious jewel is the Buddha. Now you're seeing the connection between why, or Ratana Sutta. By declaring this truth, may there be safety. Some people have translated Satchena Suvati Hotu as happiness. Even in psychotherapeutic settings, I always say to people, the most basic essential need that we have as beings is the sense of safety. If a child doesn't have the sense of safety, they will need major work later on. Their relationships will suffer tremendously. First with themselves, the relationship they have with themselves, as well as the relationships with other people. They will not know love. They will not know security. They will not have a sense of safety. It's interesting how Lord Buddha, 2,000, almost 600 years ago, is pointing that out. May there be safety, he says. Safety has everything to do with trust. Trusting each other. Can we trust each other in this room? Overseas, I have students who participate in retreats sometimes, in 10-day retreats, things like that. The other day, I heard a story from one of my students, a disturbing story, of how she had attended this 10-day silent retreat. I don't want to mention the name of it, but you kind of know. It's the most prevalent one in the world today. Even though she was one of those servers who helps, who is trying to teach them how to smile in those somber-looking retreats. Someone stole her purse, her money, her belongings during the retreat. There's no trust there, is there? Sometimes I hear about retreats not having the participants to practice sila. How can there be safety? Sometimes I've had people ask me, Bhante, why do you stress sila so much? Well, first of all, Lord Buddha makes it a crucial baseline. You cannot have samadhi without sila, forget it. And that's why it fails, it will fail. All these John Kabat-Zinns, all these people in the world talking about mindfulness this, mindfulness that, it will fail every single time because they don't have the spine, the backbone of morality. Sila has to be there. But they remove sila, they make it more appealing to the masses, so they make more money. Basically, they've weaponized, they have monetized the teachings of Lord Buddha. How can there be safety when there is no sila? When you are practicing the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth precepts, especially the first one, you are telling the world that no matter what happens to me, my mental state, however angry I get, I will never, ever hit you. I will never harm you. You're saying that to your spouse. However you make me angry, I will never harm you. You're saying to your spouse, no matter what I look at, whoever I find to be very, very attractive, I will never cheat on you. Isn't that safety? How about when you are standing next to someone or a friend, and they have money there, or they forgot it, or they give you the responsibility to take care of something valuable. You're saying, I am safe. Go ahead and take care of your business. You can come back and everything's fine. I remember when I was 12 years old, I was a busboy. When I was doing jewelry, my boss had an office, so every once in a while I had to clean the office. But he was very neglectful and he would drop things. And one time he dropped a whole packet of emeralds, very expensive, precious stones, emeralds. And it was carpeted, the floor. Good luck removing those emeralds from the carpeting fibers. I got on all fours and I started picking them up. Another time he dropped money, cash. But years earlier, my father had said, when you work for someone in a business, if you find money on the ground, you pick it up and you give it back to your boss. But what if I found out that it was mine, I found it? He said, no, you give it back because your boss is teaching you something. He's trying to see, first of all, if you are trustworthy. And lo and behold, it did happen. And I took the cash and gave it to my boss. I was only 12. But we have the system in the sila that we have. That is protection. So you're protecting yourself first, because that means you're not creating any bad kamma, vipakas, and you're also protecting the world. So many people who are going and demonstrating or trying to change the world and becoming part of organizations, or we want to change the world, first settle down, change yourself, my friend. Change yourself by adopting a more protective position, which is sila. So, so the precious jewel that here we find is not the countless, enormously priceless jewels Those are not. They are subject to anicca. The jewel of the first of the triple gem that we have, Lord Buddha, it's not the Buddha himself as the person who lived and died. No. It's the possibility, the very possibility that you and I could attain that same attainment of happiness, of freedom, of full release. That is what we are taking refuge in, not some person who lived and died. Otherwise, we're just idol worshippers, that, like some people have said. We're not. It is the possibility, the potentiality that you are confident in, that you too could attain that same thing. We're not worshiping someone. Now that is a precious gem because of the truth involved in that. And no precious gem in any Deva realm or Brahma realm could ever match it, because they will all be gone. This will never change. Kayang viragang amatang panitang yadajhaga sakyamuni samahito natena dhammena samathikinchi idampi dhamme ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. That destruction, kayan is the destruction, of grasping the non-passionate state, raga, viraga. Viraga is dispassion. When you lose that hold that this thing had on you, you become dispassionate. As you develop in your practice, you will experience viraga. Some of the students who came and asked to learn the technique, and I show them and I teach them the Dhamma and I pass the Suttas. From the very get-go, I say, be ready. Be careful what you wish for. Are you really wanting to? That's why the person really must know, be mindful of the presence of dukkha in their lives. Once they know for sure, they ask me, why, Bhante? I say, because there's dispassion coming on the horizon. If you practice well dispassion, you're going to be very closely connected to it. The things that used to be very strong for you, they will lose that impact. Now, you're not going to turn into a zombie, no. The growth that will happen in you is beyond anything measurable that you're familiar with. Similarly with nibbida or disenchantment. That's where the Dhamma is taking us. The Dhamma doesn't promise us a Deva realm necessarily. That is not that important. Because the Devas are there today, sooner or later, but for sure they are going to drop from that state. We don't aspire a heavenly birth for a heavenly birth. Most people forget that. Who cares? You have been devas many times. You don't even remember them. Why? Anicca. And many times because of the ease in lifestyle, in getting from one place to the next, just like that, enjoying so many pleasures, just like that, makes you lazy. You don't try hard. You don't try to work on you don't practice sila. Who said that all devas practice sila? Oh, they're cheating, they're harming, they are taking advantage of other things. They're simply enjoying yesterday's fare, as Lord Buddha says. So it has to be doing work involved. Many devas are, though, practicing sila, samadhi, panya as well. So here, this precious jewel is, so that destruction of craving, grasping, that non-passionate state, that deathlessness supreme, amata, that's the state of nibbana. See, even though they are trying to get rid of the quote-unquote negative influences in Vesali, look at what the verses are saying. It's talking about nibbana. He's not talking about relieving the city of Vesali from pain, of sickness only. The main sickness is the sickness of ignorance. That is what Lord Buddha is talking about. The deathless state, the amata, deathless element, the amata dhatu, is what it is talking about. And the Dhamma, so the calm and collected Sakyan sage, the Buddha, had realized this. Nothing compares to Nibbana. Yeah, okay, so what? You recover from your sickness. You're up and running, you're back in business, but sooner or later you're going to croak and die. So what was that whole show about? Every one of us will die sooner or later, okay. What or how close have we gotten to Nibbana? That is what Lord Buddha is asking here for. This precious jewel is the Dhamma. By declaring this truth, may there be safety. Yang Buddha se tho parivannai suching samadhimanantari kanya mahu samadhinatena samona vijjati idampi dhamme ratanang panitang etena satchena suvathi hotu. The Supreme Buddha praised the pure, noble Eightfold Path, calling it the path which unfailingly establishes one in the collectedness of mind. Inescapably immediate. It doesn't get to be delayed. That samadhi he's talking about. Anantarika. It has an immediacy, a concentration that is beyond. It is not a trance, like some people think. It is a collectedness of mind that allows wisdom to take place, where the beginnings of the experiences that take us closer and closer to Nibbana take place. This is what makes it relatable. Because many people have deified Lord Buddha, have deified the Dhamma, they've objectified it. And that's what we do also with suttas like the Ratana Sutta. We have objectified it. It is like a means to an end. Oh, if there's bad luck, let's have a monk come and then chant Ratana Sutta or Mangala Sutta or something. So it's a means to an end for many people. Completely missing the boat. It's us looking at the finger, not what the finger is pointing at, which is the moon, as the saying goes. One of the worst things to do is comparing the Dhamma to something else in an erroneous manner. Over the last decades, I've seen people talk about science and Buddhism to be the same. That has some partially wishful thinking involved, because they're not the same. Because science is pretty primitive still. It doesn't have, it knows very little. When I was doing biology, when I was teaching biology in America, every day, I think the consensus was that over 160, 180 different species of insects are found in the jungles of Brazil, in the Amazon. Over almost 200 species, new species were being discovered. And we think that we know everything in science. We don't. Because there's this desire to always equate the Dhamma with something to make it more popular. One of them is comparing it to psychology. It's not. That's why I use metaphors. I work in psychotherapy. That's one of my specialties. I've seen thousands and thousands of patients. We diagnose people. But that does not mean that we have to squeeze the Dhamma into the rudimentary, gross, measuring yardsticks that psychology has to provide, or science. So we must be careful. We take that with a grain of salt, or a bucket of salt, depending. So nothing could be compared to the Dhamma. And that's why it must be experienced by the person to know it for oneself. That nothing can be compared. That's why it's a precious jewel. You cannot obtain that precious jewel by reading or getting a PhD on it. It can't happen. It must be experienced. When we speak of the Dhamma, what we're speaking about is essentially the Four Noble Truths. How related is it to your life? If you're having a problem with your mate, with your boss, a problem, is it fair for us to call that suffering, stress, difficulty, tightness, unpleasant? If it's a problem, it should be. Okay. How much are you dwelling on that problem? Is it with you always? When you sit down to eat food with your loved ones, do you find that trouble still with you? Is it like that thing that's stuck on you and you want to get rid of it, but you can't? Is it like that? Well, that is telling us about the intensity of the suffering that you're experiencing. Most of us are trying to push that away until we have some mindfulness and we say, okay, stop. What's going on? Oh, it's painful. That realization is the realization of the First Noble Truth. Simple? Now comes the Second Noble Truth. Why? Why? You know, why is a courageous stance. It shows the person is intelligent, is wise. To ask why. Why am I suffering? Well, everyone is suffering. No, that's not an answer. Why am I suffering? I don't know about everyone else, but why am I suffering? Well, because I want him to do this, and he's not. I want this to happen to me, but it's not. I want her to change, but she's not. I want him to change, and he's not. How badly do you want him to change? How badly do you want your boss to change? How badly do you want? See, we use the words tanha, craving, left and right, but we never put the feeling tone to it. We never put it under our skin. Craving is just a word. It means nothing. But when you talk about the emotionality around it, when we make it more personal, yeah, I work all those hours, but my boss neglects to observe that. Never gives me that raise. He never changes. He never thinks about me, for example. How strongly am I holding on? Do you notice that? Tightness, constriction. Is there metta here? No. No. Is there wisdom here? No, absolutely not. Is there dukkha here? Absolutely. That's why we all know dukkha, but we don't know dukkha. We just take it for granted. Yeah, it's part of life. Some people have said, oh, Buddhism, Dhamma is pessimism. No. No. Lord Buddha didn't say life is suffering. He said there is suffering in life. Huge difference. A wise person will sit down and say, okay, why? And what can we do about it? And that can we do about it is the third and the fourth Noble Truths. Because it teaches you to relax your grip. Okay, my boss is not mature enough to see it. Or maybe I'm with the wrong person here in this relationship. I tried everything, but they don't see that. Okay. Lord Buddha gives the example of grinding grains of sand together and hoping that sesame oil will come out. Will it come out? Grind, dust, smash them together. Good luck if any oil comes out. You can only get sesame oil if you crush sesame seeds together. Logical, right? But we go ahead and smash those grains of sands and boulders and rocks and say, okay, come on oil, come on. I've spent 35 years with this person and he or she is definitely going to... No. Meanwhile, you're struggling and you're suffering. Why? Because there's avidya. Why? Because you're not applying the Eightfold Path. You are set on the wrong path. There is michaditi. There is no sammaditi. Your view is wrong to begin with. So if I'm going this way, and I don't know which city is in this direction, let's say, maybe, is Singapore in which direction? Help me here, I don't know where the south is. Back, okay, so Singapore is in this way, but I am going in this direction, or in that direction. Okay? Well, I'm sorry, but it won't work. It won't work. It's like grinding the grains of sand together, expecting to find oil. So it requires us to get the right attitude. And that's the Magga part, which is the fourth part of the Noble Truths. These are not just terms we memorize. These are lifestyle choices. You apply these principles in your life on a daily basis. How come you don't think about it in terms of the Dhamma? That's what makes the Dhamma alive in your life, not in some book, not in some lecture or talk. It's in your life. And the choices you make in your thoughts, in your words, and in your bodily actions. Ye puggala atha satang pasattha chattari etani yugani honti te dakhineya sugatassa savaka ete sudinnani mahaphalani idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvatti hotu. The eight, this is where we get to the crux of the Ratana Sutta, what it is really all about. Next time when you're attending a puja, or you are chanting yourself, think about these words. The eight individuals are praised by the wise, and they constitute the four pairs. These are the true disciples of the Buddha and are worthy of offerings. Gifts offered to them yield abundant results. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By declaring this truth, may there be safety. Throughout the suttas, you see Lord Buddha talking about this again and again and again and again. The eight Arya Savakas. These are not supernatural beings from a different planet. These can be you, your relatives, your loved ones, but especially you. These are not special beings somewhere else. What Lord Buddha is talking about are the four stages of awakening, those who have attained the four stages of awakening. Sotapanna, which is stream winner or stream enterer, someone who has entered the stream. Once returner, Sakadagami, meaning they only come back once. And depending, there's different categorization of that. Some of them come back to this world once. But some of them don't even come back to this world ever again. They could be reborn in a Deva realm. And then there's the Anagami. There's different kinds of Anagami, but essentially non-returner. They will never, ever, ever return to any realm other than a pure abode. This is where the Mahayanists later on came up and constructed their own realms or Buddha lands, things like that. Pure lands. It's not actually. They just took it from the pure abodes that you find here. It's only for the Anagamis. You can sit there and chant the Buddha's name, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to be reborn in that pure abode. You have to get rid of the 5 lower fetters, the Sangyojanas. There's 10. So the first 5 have to go. Sakkaya Ditthi, Vichikiccha, Silabbata Paramasa. The rites and rituals. Believing that the rites and rituals are going to get you anywhere, that belief drops. Because you see the futility of it. The unrealism in it. You also see through the personality view. The identification with the self. That's a Sakkaya Ditthi. And you also lose that doubt towards the Dhamma. Next time someone says something, hey, let's go and listen to Satguru over there. Or somebody else. You say, what? Yeah, but look how many millions of followers they have. You sound so interesting. You say, no. It never fools you. That's what makes a Sotapanna. Their faith in the Dhamma is so strong, nobody can convince you otherwise. But in addition to those 3, an Anagami is one who has completely removed the lust after raga, sense pleasures. And similarly, the hatred is left. Somebody might come and do something bad to them. They feel the jolt, but the situation is gone. And they say, something did happen. What was it? I'm supposed to be angry at someone, but I'm not. They remember, they say, yeah, but I'm supposed to get even more angry than this, but they can't. They cannot touch, they cannot hold that hatred. It's gone. Even if they wanted to, they can't. That is an Anagami. That means they have relinquished the 5 Sangyojanas. That is the level of a person who can be reborn in the pure abodes. Nobody else. Sakadagami cannot. Even a Buddha cannot be reborn in that realm, because it's only for Anagamis. But they can come out of it and they can go and visit and they can go and encourage the Dhamma. Like it was the case with Brahma Sahampati, who encouraged Lord Buddha to teach the Dhamma. He was coming from the pure abodes. Because he used to be a bhikkhu who became an Anagami at an earlier eon, in a different Buddha's time. So that is the 3rd, and then you have the Arahant. So, but you had 8, right? 4 pairs. So each of these stages has 2 segments. Think of it as when you were coming up the stairs. This is an example I have from Ajahn Mahabua. He describes it beautifully. He says, Magga and Phala. Magga means the path, means that the person has entered, but it's like 1 foot still is in the air, or still has not come up to the 2nd stair. So you have 2 stairs. If I were to step up here, so you step 1 foot, where's the other foot? Still on the ground. But it's certain that you are going there. That's the Arahant, or any of the other stages. So the person has entered the path of that attainment, but they're not fully there yet. That becomes the Phala level, which is the fruition stage. And that's what Lord Buddha divided each of these into 2. That's how you have the 8. These are the actual Mahasangha. This is what you are taking refuge in the triple gem, in the 3rd. When you say, I take refuge in the Sangha. I have sometimes people who come and they say, Bhante, I'm sorry, but I have an issue with, I don't have the trust towards some bhikkhus. How can I take refuge in that? And it's a legitimate question. Across the world, I've heard this question from different students. I had to struggle with this. Because you see things and you're like, wait a minute, how can I take refuge in that? I don't agree. I live better than that. It's not them that you take refuge in. Remember that. This is the Sangha Lord Buddha is saying in the Ratana Sutta. That's what makes this sutta so powerful. You're seeing now the essence, the core of the sutta. It's not just a mere sutta to chant to ward off evil spirits. But why are the evil spirits or negative energies leaving you? That's what we're looking at. The core of it. It's talking about the real Sangha. And you could be part of that. That's why we teach you the Dhamma. So you could practice the Dhamma. And you can taste the fruits yourself. In this world today, you have these individuals. These are not lost in the pages of history, you know. Yeah, I wish we were living in a time of Lord Buddha where we could experience this. No! There are people. I know them by name. Who are part of the 8. And I'm just happen to be just one person who knows about them. There's so many millions of them in the world. But they're not going to come out and declare themselves. The Dhamma does the job, don't worry. You have to have the faith in you also attaining this by practicing what? Sila, Samadhi, Panya. These are not just principles to remember, memorize. These are choices with which we live. That's why the Dhamma is a patipada. It's a training. It's a practice. Not some things that we chant. We don't believe in. We don't understand their truth. Yes suppayutta manasa dalhena nikkamino gotama sasanam hi te pattipatta amatang vigaiha laddha muddha nibbuting bunjamana idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. With a steadfast mind and applying themselves well in the dispensation of the Buddha Gautama, they are free from defilements. They have attained to that which should be attained, arahantship, as they dwell in the deathless, amata, again. Deathless, by the way, because they will never experience death again, because there's no more birth. This body, they drop the body and that's it. No more birth into any womb, into any realm. Freedom. That's why we call it release, vimutti. Bhante Punnaji used to use the term akuppa ceto vimutti a lot. Imperturbable serenity of mind, he would call it. Vimutti. Liberation, release. Releasing from death. Releasing from birth. That's real freedom. Otherwise, any other freedom, I mean, we saw what happened 2 years ago, for 2 years actually. Our freedoms were taken away. Today somebody was saying, I don't know how to connect with my friends. Children don't know how to connect. People have missed social settings. They want to be, again, social, but now they feel awkward. They feel they're doing something wrong. They're breaking the rules. No, it's okay. It's okay. So we see freedom, even physical freedom, it could be taken away. But this freedom cannot be taken away because it is attained by you, yourself. No one can take that away. Even your memories can be taken away, right? Alzheimer's comes and boom, decades of memories are gone. Let's look for the right kind of freedom. That's where safety is. Yatinda kilo pataving sitosya chatubhi vatebhi asampakampyo tatupamang swappurisang vadami yo ariya satchani aveccha passati idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. As a post planted deeply into the earth stands unshaken by the winds from all four directions, so too, I declare, is the superior person, who sees and understands with wisdom the Four Noble Truths. That's the Ariya Satchani. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By declaring this truth, may there be safety. Now, I just wanted to touch on a post that is planted deep into the earth. In old palaces, in towers, in barricaded cities and things like that, if you've ever visited an old gated palace, the gates would be pretty thick, the doors, some of them made out of bronze or some metal, but right behind, in the inner side of the palace, they would have a hole dug deep in the ground. And they would have almost like a tree trunk, a big thick post, wood. And they would slide that inside of the hole, because half of the post would be inside the ground, the other half would be above the ground. Are you imagining it? Now, why? Because the gates, they might have elephants trying to break through, or horses, or bulldozing their way inside. They might crash, destroy the gates, the doors, but the post, half of it is in the solid ground. It is unmovable. You can't move it. So that is the image that I would like you to think of. And that's what they used to use. Some years ago, I went to India and I visited some of the old cities in Jaipur. And you do see some of these gates, and some of these gates actually have been destroyed. People have tried to crash their way in, armies and things. And you see some of these holes in the ground. Very interesting. This was something that was being kept at the time of Lord Buddha. So, as a post planted deeply in the earth stands unshaken by the winds from all four directions, so too I declare the superior person, the one who has understood the Four Noble Truths. That is this noble Sangha, Lord Buddha says. Again, the connection to the Ratana, the jewel. Ye arya satchani vibhavayanti gambhira panyena sudesitani kinchapite honti bhusappamatta nate bhavang attamang adiyanti idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena subhati hotu. Those who realize the noble truths well taught by him who is profound in wisdom, the Buddha, even if they become exceedingly heedless, still they would not take an eighth rebirth into samsara. Who's he talking about? Sotapanna, yes. A Sotapanna will never take an eighth rebirth. And by the way, that is a very, very, very lazy Sotapanna. I would call him a dumb type of a Sotapanna. Why dumb? Because they're being heedless. They have seen the Dhamma, but they are procrastinating. They're saying, well, let me go ahead and enjoy some more sensual pleasures. Yeah, there's a Deva realms. I want to skulk around. I want to enjoy the Brahma realms. I want to enjoy nymphs. I want to go to Tavatimsa heaven and enjoy all these beautiful people, beautiful whatever. I want to have enjoyment. Or I don't want to practice sati. Well, this person, let's say they became a Sotapanna in this life, in this human birth. They're still alive, Sometimes I've noticed in students, they attain to something like this, a stage like this, which is very lofty. They say, okay, I'm good. What do you mean, you're good? I don't have to strive anymore. I'm good. At least I have Sotapanna, I'm okay. Why? Arahantship is right there. You could have the state of Arahantship any moment if you strive. Remember Bahia? He went through all those 8 stages, 4 stages primary, in one encounter with Lord Buddha. That laziness, heedlessness is what can cause a person to have 7 rebirths, but not an 8th. It's impossible. So sometimes, I won't mention names, but you have in different traditions where you have some teachers who are called by their students, oh, so-and-so is enlightened. Meanwhile, they also believe in that tradition that this person has been going again and again and again, coming in and again in different manifestations. Well, if we go with the Dhamma and we call ourselves Buddhists, that simply is impossible. Because at the very most, there should not have been this 8th rebirth for this so-called enlightened being. So, I will say that much on that. So you see now Lord Buddha is specifically talking about the Sotapanna, because again and again you see this mentioned where Lord Buddha is opening his heart and sharing it by declaring to Ananda. He says, he doesn't say the word I wish, but you can almost sense it. He says, I wish everybody would attain at the very least the Sotapanna stage. Because that guarantees that you will never be slaughtered again. You will never be visiting hell again. Never to encounter what it feels like to be burning in hell. People still believe that these things don't exist. This practice allows us to know the truth in what Lord Buddha taught. When you practice, you will see these for yourself. I come from a science background. I used to read about devas, this yaksas, this, that, devas and hell beings and animal realms. Yeah. Animals we can relate to. We know cats, dogs, we see them. Okay? Snail, ant, mosquitoes. But the other realms are so suspicious, especially if you're very scientifically oriented in your thinking. But trust me, they do exist. In fact, I would let you be the judge of that. Your practice will tell you the truth in this. They do exist. The hell realms are real. Just like the deva realms are real. We live in a world where they have convinced us that if you are a so-called cultured, civilized, educated person, then you shouldn't believe in this mumbo-jumbo hell realm thingy, afterlife thingy. That is one of the best tools that Maha uses, by the way. Because you take that out of the equation, that's what you have in the world, where you have so many powerful entities, organizations enslaving humanity. And they have no qualms about it. Banks stealing countries, bankrupting people. And they go home, have dinner with their loved ones. They say, I love you to each other. Because they simply have said to themselves, once I die, I don't exist. I don't feel anything. There's nothing. It's just oblivion. It's just blackness. So whatever I do, it's before. So if I can get away with it, more power to me. This is, if you recall from the earlier talks, nihilistic view, which is one of the favorite tools of Maha. So let's not be fooled that this is educated position. No, it's dumb position. Because you are sacrificing your whole entire life on this planet, an opportunity to practice the Dhamma. And it's being wasted. Even if they become exceedingly heedless, he says, still they would not take an 8th rebirth into samsara. Sahavasa dasana sampadaya tayasu dhamma jahita bhavanti sakkaya ditti vichikichitancha silabbatang vapi yadathi kinchi chatuhapaye cha vippamutto chacha bhitanani abhabbo katum idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena sachena suvati hotu. With the gaining of higher wisdom, he abandons three states of mind, namely the illusion of a personality view, skeptical doubt, vichikicha, and adhering to rites and rituals, which I mentioned earlier. These are the primary sangyojana. When the person drops these, they are basically seeing the Dhamma. This is what's called jnana dassana. The person has passed the point of no return. Even if they want to go back, they cannot. This is the first glimpse of freedom. This, because it has certainty in it. The person now speaks with so much certainty, they will stand in front of the whole planet while everybody's screaming at this one person saying you're wrong, and this person will never lose an ounce of courage because they are speaking from the Dhamma. They have tasted the Dhamma. That's enough. This is the transition point. This is what Lord Buddha was talking about. This is what the Dhamma is trying to inculcate in us. That's why the Dhamma is not rites and rituals. That's why the person laughs when someone comes and says, can we do some puja? Can we do this? And the person on the inside, they're just like going, oh, no. Okay, sure, yeah. Because in reality, they have tasted the Dhamma. They know it's beyond that. If they can, they want to shake the person out of that coma. And some teachers have done that, have shaken their students. Literally. But that's one of the reasons why it's an unpopular position. So some teachers elect not to talk about this completely. And you go ahead and chant the sutta. Hey, yeah, we're chanting Ratana Sutta. And never get to the essence, the core of it. That this is talking about something totally different than getting rid of sickness. And sickness now, okay, later, what happens? You get sick and die again. Oh, what was that all about? How much? Come on. This is a permanent effect that you will have on your stream of consciousness, if you will. The moment you experience jnana dassana and these three fetters are dropped. That's why you never can go back to the four lower realms. It's impossible. It doesn't work. Okay. Kinchap, okay, so thus this person is wholly freed from rebirth into the four lower realms and therefore incapable of committing the 6 major wrongdoings. That includes killing of one's mother, one's father, injuring a Buddha, drawing blood, intentionally killing an arahant, all these things. Killing another person, they won't happen. It's impossible for this person, even a sotapanna, to do these things. If it happens by some means, they have to come out and say it, announce it. They can't hide it. They can't pretend that it didn't happen or blame someone else. It doesn't work. That's what makes the person Arya, noble, not one's birth, not one's color of skin or who they come from, what family, what religion they belong to. None of those things. Kinchapiso kammang karoti papakang. And this is where Lord Buddha is saying, if anyone goes ahead and does something bad, papaka means evil action. Kayena vacha uda chetasava abhabboso tassa patichadaya Ababbata dittha padasavutta idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. Any evil actions he may still commit, whether by deed, physical deed, action, word or thought, he is incapable of concealing it. What a litmus test. What a sure way of knowing something. And it doesn't know time. Whether it was a Sotapanna from the time of Lord Buddha, whether it's a Sotapanna walking in the streets of Kuala Lumpur today, they still will adhere to the same principles because it is in the essence of the realization, the direct understanding of the person. The person is no longer the same person they were. And these principles that Lord Buddha is delineating are absolutely 100% valid today as they were then. Since it has been proclaimed that such concealing is impossible for one who has seen the path to Nibbana. That's why we call it Jnana Dassana, the knowledge and vision of Nibbana. Vanappa gumhe yatha pusitagge gimhanamase pathamasmin gimhe tatupamang dhamma varangadesai nibbana gaming paramang hitaya idampi buddhe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. As the woodland groves, the forest, though in the early heat of the summer month are crowned with blossoming flowers, even so is the sublime Dhamma that leads to the peace of Nibbana, which is taught by the Buddha for the highest good. It's refreshing. Even if it's hot, and you see these cherry blossom-like flowers on the trees, it makes you forget the heat of the craziness that the world that you're living in as a Sotapanna, because you always have the deathless to go back to. Even though you're in the middle of the heat of the craziness in the world, of avidya, and you have a lot of it still, but you have that oasis of Dhamma inside of you, which is unmoving. It grows though, it unfolds. It unfolds, because that Sotapanna does and could turn into one's returner, non-returner, and an arahant in that same very life. Varo varanyu varado varaharo anuttaro dhamma varanga desai idampi buddhe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. The peerless excellent one, the Buddha, the knower of Nibbana, the giver of Nibbana, the bringer of the noble path, taught us the excellent Dhamma. This precious jewel is the Buddha. By declaring this truth, may there be safety. Some have said that these words were coming out of Venerable Ananda's mouth, because here you can almost sense that he's pointing at Lord Buddha as he's describing. He's the giver of Nibbana, even though no one gives you Nibbana. But in essence, through the giving of Dhamma, teaching the Dhamma, in essence, he's giving us Nibbana. That's what Brahma Sampati said. The gates of the deathless are now open, he said. When Lord Buddha said, yes, I will teach the Dhamma. I will set the Dhamma in motion. That's why the gates were open. So he's the giver. He's the king of the Dhamma, we say. Kinang puranang navang nathi sambhavang viratta chitta ayatike bhavasmin Tekhina bija avirul hichanda nibbanti dhira yathayang padipo idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu. With their past kamma spent and no more new kamma arising for them, that means we are talking about an arahant. The arahant is the one who no longer makes new kamma. Some places it's called Kiriya Chitta, which means the action is committed there, but no vipakas are created. It's there, it ends there, just like Bahya. when Lord Buddha said, when seeing Bahya, just see. When tasting, just taste. When smelling, just smell. There is no attachment of me, myself. There is no asmimana, the conceit I am. This is happening to me. Why is this happening? No, none of that. Now, again, the Arahant is not a vegetable. He's not a zombie. When he feels cold, he will put a jacket on. And when it's not, he might take off the jacket. End of story. There is no intention, there is no planning per se. Agenda keeping. And no more new karma arising for them. Their mind is no longer attached to future re-becoming. There's no pono bhavika. There's no craving for re-becoming. I wonder what will happen next. If I do this, then if that happens, then I should do this. You're looking at life with fresh eyes. You're alive for the first time. As the seed of the desire for rebirth has been scorched and dead, they now live with no craving for reliving. Such wise men fade out of existence as the flame of this lamp which has just faded away. In the commentaries, they say that at that moment, a deva went and extinguished the oil lamp. Imagine this oil lamp. Invisible hands came and just went. And Lord Buddha doesn't even miss a beat. He says, just like this lamp that just went out. Where did it go? You had many lazy commentators. Lazy because they don't practice. That's the lazy, not the thinking. The mental acrobatics, intellectual, all those mumbo jumbo. They argued for centuries, and they still do, as to where does the Arahant go? Why don't you practice and find that out yourself? That would be a good response. Okay. So, and now we get to the section where Sakka is making a declaration. Sakka being the king of the gods, and everybody there is listening when Sakka is talking. He's the king of the devas. Yani dhabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantalikhe tathagatang deva manussa pujitang buddhang namassama suvati hotu. Whatever non-human beings that are assembled here, whether terrestrial or celestial, come, let us all salute the Buddha, the Tathagata, the perfected one, honored and cherished by devas and humans. May there be safety. So this is like the seal of approval, this is Sakka saying sadhu, basically. Yani dabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantalikhe tathagatang deva manussa pujitang dhammang namassama suvati hotu. Now he's saying the same thing about the Dhamma. Whatever non-human beings that are assembled here, whether terrestrial or celestial, come, let us all salute the perfect Dhamma, honored and cherished by devas and humans. May there be safety. Yani dhabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantalikhe tathagatang deva manussa pujitang sanghang namassama suvati hotu. Whatever non-human beings that are assembled here, whether terrestrial or celestial, come, let us all salute the perfect Sangha, honored and cherished by devas and humans. May there be safety. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The Dhamma is brought to life when we look at the suttas with fresh eyes. Not in the printed letters in a book or the digital form of it online, is what we do with the Dhamma when we are lucky enough to receive it in our hearts. When Lord Buddha was asked as to the situations that within a person can become awakened, he mentioned 5. He said when someone is giving a Dhamma discourse, while they're teaching it, they could attain. The second is very pertinent to us. When someone is listening to the Dhamma, he says, they can attain. I know of someone who has attained Sotapatti just by listening to the Dhamma. In the 21st century, yes. Just listening to the Dhamma. But how? How we listen is the key. Is the key. Am I carrying so much junk in my head as to what I am expecting the Dhamma to sound like? So-and-so Bhante said this, so-and-so Ajahn said that. Well, wait a minute, in this sutta says this, how come? Too much jargon, too much noise. How can Dhamma set root into your heart with all that nonsense? So shake it off before you even sit on your cushion to meditate. Every time you're listening to Dhamma talk, or reading a book, reading a sutta, shake it all off. Don't presume. Nobody likes to eat stale food, right? Food from 2 weeks old, if you left it outside especially, would you like to eat that food? Everybody likes to eat fresh food when you eat. But some of the food, mental food that we have in there is so moldy. It's been there for decades. So, adopting a position, a mental, spiritual, if you will, position of being humble. Humility is so important. Humility not towards some speaker, not towards some Bhante, no. Humility towards the Dhamma. That is what is the key here to remember. And that also includes when you break a sila. Don't be so harsh on yourself. I should not have broken that precept. Okay, you broke it, fine. It's a training rule. Remember, training, sikkhapadang, you're training. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, depending on the situation and the pressures or whatever. Okay, the key thing to remember, ask yourself, if I were to have the same situation again present itself, would I do it again? If I had the option, if somebody takes me with a time machine back, would I do it again? If the answer is no, that's good. Just say, okay, let me retake that precept. If it's musavada, you lied or you yelled or something, retake the precept right there and then. Don't let remorse come in. It's one of the worst things. Kukucha. It drags you. Whatever good qualities you have, that also goes out into the trash. Drop it. So that also requires humility, kindness. Remember, metta towards you. Don't expect it to come from someone else. First, it has to come from us. So I will stop here and ask if there are questions. Yes.
Bhante, just want to know, just now you mentioned 4 pairs, right? That 8 make up the, it's I think like you cross a stream and then someone who have realized it become a sotapanna. So that makes up the 8 pairs, right? So
the magga, which is the path,
right.
But that person, it's not settled yet.
Yeah.
That level is not rested yet.
Correct. So that person who's just about to cross will eventually cross or not?
Yes, if
Or that one can still fall back. And only those who arrive to Sotapanna will remain, but those who are just trying to cross, can they still fall back? Like not crossing at all at the end. But they tried, they attempted.
I'm waiting for your question to be over because I don't want to be interrupting you.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard from other teachers that the person can fall out of that state. I am not of that understanding, because the experience is so earth-shattering for the person. They might not still be settled into it. It's like, I'm going to give you a mundane, very mundane example. In no way does it do justice. But imagine you have finally found that comfortable shoes. Even though it's comfortable, but it's not very as comfortable as it could be after you've worn it for some time, right? Same thing with clothing, etc. Glasses. But it's far deeper than that. Because why earth-shattering? Because the person now, depending on how much of an attachment they have had to their old personality view, they often would end up doubting the experience, especially if somebody points it out to them and says, okay, you've reached that stage. I've had people who would come and start arguing with me. No, it's impossible for me to have attained it, Bhante. That's not possible. It's not possible. Why? That means that the person now is struggling. It doesn't mean that they have vicikiccha necessarily. Now, even though the Sangyojanas are mentioned, 3 of them being dropped, sometimes people say they're completely removed. That is not true. They're not completely removed. But they are removed, but the person has a relationship to it. The closest example to this is this. Have you ever had any tooth fillings? Okay, if it's made of the lead, the material that they would use, the metal. Remember in the old days, 70s, 80s, the mercury, yes, mercury. Eventually they came up with porcelain and things like that. So you go and you find yourself a very good dentist with latest technologies, and they have the ability to remove it. They remove it, and then they put porcelain around it. But something is left behind. A little bit of the coloration, or discoloration in this case, on the enamel of the tooth is still there. You go look for the mercury, it's not there though. It's similar to that. But there's no mercury. But the person now has to negotiate with this new self-image that they have, because they're not arahants yet. Because they're now because they still have attachment to views, to ideas, as to how this experience is supposed to be. Because they read about Anathapindika, they read about others, they read about Chitta, the layperson who became an anagami. As a layperson. He had 4 wives, Not after being an anagami, though. He gave up those relations. He became sisters with them. You cannot engage in sexual activities if you're an anagami, for example. But coming directly back to your question, whether the person attains to the fruition stage of any of these 4 during their lifetime or not, before they die, they will attain the fruition stage. Before they die. It might be at the very last minute of their life. That would be the jumping board, the springboard for them to attain. It is, so my answer would be no to that other Thera's explanation that it's very flimsy. You can come out of it. No, I'm not of that camp. If the person has experienced even Magga, it's so earth-shattering that it changes the person enough to want to see themselves in a brighter light. Because ultimately what will happen is Sila, Samadhi, Panya will transform themselves into the higher version, meaning Adi Sila, Adi Chitta, Adi Panya, in the Arya Savaka, in the Sekha, we call them the noble disciple in training, until they become Arahants. So don't worry. Attain to the Magga path level of Sotapatti and you're good. But chances are you will not want to stay there. You will be itching to move up, which is how it's supposed to be. And in many ways, it's like a student who gets to the 10th grade, and now they want to move up to the 11th, and then they want to go to the 12th, etc. But that also is not a very good analogy, but that's the one that came to mind, because it is very transformative for the person. The quality of life changes. Colors have a different look to them. Colors even. The three-dimensionality of life changes when you look at things. I had one individual, one bhikkhu say, it is like, have you seen the movie Avatar? Yeah. When you first watched it, the colors are so vibrant. They're almost like popping out of the screen of the TV or the movie screen. They're so light, like you're almost touching them. It's like 3D. And the way he described it was beautiful. That after a person attains that, they will be experiencing colors in a similar fashion. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to that. It's like almost like you have eyes. I like to describe it as somebody just granted you a new set of eyes when you were blind. Will your relationship change towards the world? I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
Can I ask, how many years of experience do you need to attain Sotapan? How would we know? Maybe I start practicing, how would I know whether I attain or not? Maybe how many years, is there any experience on that?
The worst thing you could do is when you have these hidden, I call it personal agendas, which comes from all the junk that I was mentioning. Especially it comes when you hear commentators and their own ideas, and especially many of them are never actually set foot, they've never experienced any of these 8 stages, but they are experts apparently, somehow. It's like somebody who never swam writing a book on swimming. We laugh, but that's what we have. So, as far as years ago, I actually, when I first went to the United States, I had done wushu in the past in Lebanon. So I practiced martial arts, Chinese martial arts, Kung Fu. And I finally met this very well-known, legitimate teacher of different styles of martial arts, and an elderly Chinese grandmaster. And I met him, and he spoke very little English, and we had a translator in between us. And I asked him, because I wanted to learn Bagua, and which is, walking martial arts is very, that's what I used to use a lot, and I used to practice. And he said, yes, I will teach you that. And I said, how long will it take me to master it? And he laughed. I think you know where this is going. And there's a story which I'm reminded of now, there was a person, a traveler in a foreign country, foreign land, and he was walking. And so finally he gets to see some form of civilization by seeing this farmer in his field, plowing away. And he says, "Excuse me, sir, how far is it to the city?" The man looks at him, and he just keeps on plowing. The man asks him again, the stranger. Again, this one, now he's not even paying attention to him. So he says, okay, I guess these people in this country are very uncivilized and very rude. So he continues on his path, and suddenly the man behind him says, 1 hour and 15 minutes. He stops, turns around, and he says, "Why didn't you tell me when I asked you?" And the man says, the farmer says, "Well, I didn't know how fast you were going. I had to see your pace." Similarly, there is no set in stone type of a time period. That would be nonsensical. That would be rather stupid, if you allow me. Because many people have stopped their progress because of that. I've even heard some Mahatheras, very well respected Mahatheras, who said, you cannot even experience the fourth jhana as a layperson, which is absolutely nonsense. You don't see an example of this in the suttas. Not only that, they said a layperson cannot experience Sotapatti. Who said that? Nowhere in the suttas do you see that. In fact, you see the opposite. So many lay people became anagamis. Hattaka of Alavi, Chitta were two examples. Visakha was another example who attained, and they were very notable Dhamma teachers, enough so they would teach the Dhamma to Mahatheras. Bhikkhus of Lord Buddhas, they would teach them. As far as the time, therefore, it's totally up to the person. Now, of course, the person's merits, punya, this and that, can have a role to play, can or could, but that should not stop the person from exerting the energy to go all the way. My urgency is this. Imagine you only have 5 minutes left on this planet. Would that change your relationship to the Dhamma? Many people say, well, I'll practice when I have the time, Bhante. I used to use that question a lot in therapy sessions. When people were saying, I hate this person, I hate my father, I hate my mother, I hate my husband, my wife, da-da-da-da-da, all these things. I say, okay, imagine someone calls you on the phone and they say, look at the news, watch the news, there's an asteroid coming and we only have 5 minutes left. What happens to that hatred that you have towards your loved one? Is it still there? I doubt it. Poof, gone exactly. So the key thing, rather than that question, because not every question deserves a legitimate answer, because not every question is worthy of an answer. But what I would offer this in turn is this. How much sangvega does the person have in his heart? That is the necessary ingredient. That is what differs within a person who is a Sotapanna and a person who is not. Unfortunately, that's why you have a lot of bhikkhus on this planet. Theravada. You've heard me talk a lot about this, and I will talk about this until my last breath. Because that is what Lord Buddha also wanted from the bhikkhus. He would look at the congregation of bhikkhus, and there's a few times where he says, he smiles, and Venerable Ananda says, Bhante, why, there's the Tathagatas, when they smile, there's got to be a reason. You're smiling. Why are you smiling, Bhante? And Lord Buddha says, I'm smiling because I look at this assembly, and he says, the lowest level of attainment is a Sotapanna. Wow. Lowest. How though? Because they had the urgency Sangvega. Even putting on the robes has to come from Sangvega, not a matter of circumstance or convenience. That's why I believe the whole system has to change, in Asia especially, where children should be sent, could be sent, if the family wants to, if the child wants to stay in a monastery, but they need to be pulled out. They need to be exposed to life, and then by choice, now the adult has to go, and if they choose to, then they have to be proving themselves worthy for the robes. That is going to make sure that we have legitimate Sangha. Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, we'll do something. It's like the blind leading the blind. But unfortunately, like we know from the law of thermodynamics, the second law, energy moves from a state of orderliness to disorderliness, to chaos. This is something we cannot control. Lord Buddha could not control that, unfortunately. So the key thing is Sangvega. How much Sangvega is in the person's heart, that will guarantee the success in nobility or the failure. Almost 8 billion of us will fail. Almost every one of us will fail, because the urgency is for something else. It's for money, it's for wealth, it's for having a family, it's for having children, it's for having grandchildren, it's for having fame. That's not Sangvega. So a person like that can even become a monk. I had one person say, in order for you to attain even the first jhana, you had to meditate for 40 years in a hut. 40 years. Human years, not dog years. Look at the ridiculousness. So that is up to the pace of the person, like that farmer did. I love that story. Or I don't know if it really happened, but it's a lovely anecdote. I hope I was able to somehow respond to your question.
Maybe you can give us a recommendation of what we should be doing to attain that level.
Why do you think I shared with you the metta today? That is powerful, because we have lost the connection with ourselves. People don't know how to smile. If I showed you pictures of my teenage years, you don't see me smiling. Really. I had a miserable childhood. I was subject to abuse of all kinds. So I didn't see that there was a reason for me to feel joy, happiness. Dhamma gave me that. Giving my time to others gave me that. And it gives, so long as there's breath, air, oxygen in your lungs, and it's working, you have the potential to have jnana dassana while you are alive. But that has to be allowed in your mind. You must relinquish your restrictive attitude towards the possibility for Nibbana. Many of us are holding that so closely. No, it doesn't happen to me. It happens to some other person. Why? Who said that? Who said that? So we have all these delusional ideas. Every time you're breathing, you're actually dying to the past. Meaning you are boarding to the newness, freshness. Can you look at Dhamma with those fresh eyes? So that would be a good way to be on the right path. So I hope that helps. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I think Brother Leslie has a question.
Yeah, Bhante. Thank you for that kind sharing. But I'm now struggling with myself, trying to understand what the Buddha was trying to say, tell Ananda. Can you help us to put it into a nutshell? what was it that the Buddha was actually trying to teach Ananda or to tell the people in Vesali at the end of the day, because they were suffering? So what was the Ratana Sutta actually all about in relation to what was happening in the vicinity? What was the message that the Buddha was trying to tell us, or rather Ananda for that matter? So can you just try to explain it to us in a nutshell?
By pointing out the relevancy of the Dhamma, by pointing out the differences in what people were looking for safety. Meaning, we have gone through this major global experiment where we have lost our sanity, basically, by attaching mercilessly and in a crazy fashion to the body and its so-called health. For that, we have sacrificed our dignities, integrity, common sense in many, many places. Families are now far distant from each other, emotionally, disconnected in some cases, because of the adherence to what they thought they should be doing, for the sake of fear, panic, delusion, basically. That's what was happening in Vesali. I wasn't there, but having read enough suttas to have an idea about Venerable Ananda and how he was very of an empathetic type. He was an empath, but he also loved working with people. He loved being a liaison between people and the Buddha. So he was too far leaning into the world. I'm mentioning Venerable Ananda because you specifically asked what was his intention, Lord Buddha's. Lord Buddha, as a very, very good teacher, the greatest of teachers in my book, being the way he was, so compassionate, he never worked with just one intention in mind. It's always, 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 however you look at it, it's multifaceted. And that is a good hallmark of a good or a great teacher. They never go from A to B to C to D. It's not linear. It is non-linear. They work on multi-levels. So he was also teaching Ananda something. Because Ananda was the kind of a Sotapanna who did not have the Sangvega. He said, hey, I'm the ambassador of Dhamma. I am the liaison. Whenever somebody wanted to talk to the Buddha, I am the one who's making that happen. And he has some you have many, many good suttas where Ananda is giving good, sound advice. Let's not take that away from him. But as far as Lord Buddha was concerned, as far as his noble friends were concerned in the holy life, like Venerable Anuruddha, his teacher, Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Mahamoggalana, they were always like pushing him, like, Ananda, sit down and meditate. You can almost see that. But he was always rushing, doing something else, because he saw that to be more important, which has elements of laziness. Don't be ashamed. Yeah, procrastination. He didn't have the urgency. That's why it took him until he was 80 years old, until Lord Buddha died afterwards for him. So, as far as the message goes, as I've mentioned several times today, it is about the Arya Savakas, the true jewel. Specifically, you do have the mention of the other two jewels, yes. The Buddha and the Dhamma, yes. He mentions it in the beginning verses, yes. But as you saw, he is breaking it down to the essential parts of what is a Sotapanna. What does it mean? And if you notice, he doesn't talk about that much at all, actually, about the once returner or the non-returner. He talks about the Sotapanna and the Arahant, if you noticed. So many of the verses were talking about the Sotapanna. That is how much emphasis Lord Buddha wanted to place when he said, at the very least, I would love for you to attain Sotapatti. At the very least. Because that guarantees that you will never, ever, ever visit the lower realms. What a beautiful gift. And if you owe anything to Lord Buddha, it's that. Every one of us owes. If we owe anything, is to make ourselves Sotapannas. That is how you can start repaying Lord Buddha. Go ahead. That is the challenge. Do it. That is the main message here. Is it doable? Absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be screaming my lungs out since, actually, before I joined here. Over Zoom, remember? It's joy, but we have to permit ourselves to be joyful. We're expecting somebody else from outside to come and give us permission to attain. You don't need anybody's permission. Not a bhikkhu for sure. The reason why a bhikkhu exists is first and foremost to attain that very same state that I am urging you to, meaning Sotapanna. If my objective as a bhikkhu is not to attain that I am eating the food of the good, hardworking lay people for naught. It's in vain. I must deserve the food that is given to me. The four requisites, the roof over my head, the medicine, the robes. That is the attitude with which every bhikkhu should abide by. This world will be a wonderful place, and the sasana's life will be extended, for sure. But you don't have to wait for the bhikkhus to actually have this life transformative decision. Do it yourself. Taste it yourself. Lord Buddha did not say, well, this is only for the bhikkhus. Oh, no, 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 no. The majority of the three category of awakened ones, Arya Savakas, were lay people, you know. Bigger in numbers. Most of the white-clothed upasakas and upasikas who were there, they were Arya Savakas. Lay disciples. Not bad, huh?
Bhante, I've got a question on Ratana Sutta. So it seems Ratana Sutta is very powerful. There's a lot of elements in Ratana Sutta. The Dhamma, the triple gems, even the Dhamma is being praised by Sakas, the Devas. Right? My question is, or rather I have this curiosity, during the time of pandemic, the coronavirus, all over the world, we've been chanting Ratana Sutta. So Bhante, could you perhaps maybe explain to us what is the best way to explain to someone who asks us, as Buddhists, the best answer to tell them, why do you chant Ratana Sutta during the coronavirus pandemic? What is the element there? Is it the Dhamma? Is it the morality? Is the declaration of, in the beginning we said to ward off evil spirit. What evil spirit are we talking about in the 21st century? Is that in humanity or morality? So perhaps maybe Bhante could share with us the best answer to give. Thank you.
If you've ever cleaned your house, or a table, or a desk, or a white sheet like this, there's something that landed, something that you want to scrape off to keep it clean. What must you make sure of first about yourself, about your contribution, about cleaning it? To make it faster, quicker, is easier, you would look at your hands. Are my hands dirty? Do I have grease on it? Because I'm about to touch something that's crisp white. I might actually smudge it even worse, right? Sometimes, you would have the whiteboard in classroom and the eraser is very dirty. And there's a line that you want to erase and you use the eraser without looking how dirty it is and you just do this and all of a sudden you made it worse. So it's similar to that. When we are hoping to have Ratana Sutta by some magical means to do something in the world where so-called evil spirits would be vanished, it's very similar to, and a person is not practicing sila, not practicing samadhi. It's like the person having a dirty hand, doing that to try to clean up the white sheet. It's not going to help. So like I was saying, in the sutta itself, again and again, Lord Buddha is saying it clearly as to what it is that we are trying to do. The attention is not towards the evil spirits. The evil spirits, if they were there, or the negative energies, the negative thinking patterns versus the positive thinking patterns, you can use that. It doesn't have to be evil spirits. Many people don't believe that. That's fine. Negative thinking is the same. You put out certain frequencies with your thoughts, with your brain, when you're thinking negatively. That is testable. We see that measured. So first you have to make sure you're cleaned up. So at the very least, by you chanting this, now that you know the meaning, to go ahead and work on yourself, because now you've cleaned up your hand. Whatever you touch, it's not going to affect it. That is what the Ratana Sutta is trying to do. People, unfortunately, because they're coming from idiotic expectations, and we owe this a lot to Buddha Ghosha, as always, and other commentators, who have come to Sri Lanka over 1,000 years after the Lord Buddha's passing, and they took the Ratana Sutta, and they added the rites and ritual flair to it to get more people to come and listen to the chanting. Make donations to the Grand Maha Vihara monastery in Anuradhapura. You see the politics? You were not dealing with Arya Savakas there. So sometimes we neglect to consider these factors. Because when you are sharing with people this secret mantra, you have that in Tibetan Buddhism or this and that, or this secret prayer. You go to Thailand, people love amulets, love tiny little things. Oh, take this to this Ajahn, let him pray, and this will be warding off bullets and things. You have even monks who get tattooed certain chants so that they can get prayed. But what about the Dhamma as my best protection? What happened to that? That tells you something, doesn't it? The hand is not clean. So the Ratana Sutta is trying to show you, hey, clean your hand first. When you clean your hand, you don't have evil spirits to worry about. Because your heart is clean, your sila is beautiful, it's there. You're protecting others. Because when we have debacles in the world, that means there is not enough sila. That is what you see in the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and all the other suttas, where Lord Buddha says, when debacles happen, it's because people have relinquished their virtuous lifestyle. They're not practicing the Eightfold Path, basically. But then again, you go ahead and, yeah, I'm not practicing this, and I'm cheating this, and I'm lying there, this and that, but let me go to the temple and I'll pay the bhikkhus, or I'll chant, I'll take the 8 precepts for that day or that weekend, I should be good to go. While I go back and resume to my normal lifestyle of dirtying my hand. Well, no mantra, no sutta is going to help you. You know? That is totally unwise. But unfortunately, you have this promulgation, this encouragement on part of the monastic community over centuries, where they have trained people to think that the suttas will help you. Meanwhile, in the Ratana Sutta, clearly Lord Buddha is saying, rites and rituals, that adherence drops. Look at the irony. In the sutta, Lord Buddha says, drop the rites and rituals. In real life, Ratana Sutta is being used as a part of our rites and rituals. Go figure. Do you see how stupid human beings are? If they don't apply wisdom, and this path is all about wisdom. Make sense? I will have to stop because my throat is and I still have another 3-hour retreat coming up at 9 tonight, with virtually, so with students. But I hope this was helpful to listeners. Good. Good. I'm glad. And again, we went over the 2-hour mark. I gave up. All right. The buzz. Oh, yes. True. That's a good idea. Let us share some merits. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you be well. Sukhi hotu. May the blessings of the Triple Gem be with you and your loved ones.